must be exciting to have Lunchtime finally out in the world.
It is. It's good. I've been sitting on that for a while. We have been. It was written probably a year and a half ago now.
Wow.
Like
Nice.
March, at the very beginning of the pandemic last year.
Mhm.
So it's good to definitely have
Really
it. And we've been lots of revisions and remixes and things like that. So it's cool to be, yeah, for sure.
Was it mostly sort of like a lockdown creation, or was it just kind of coincidental that it happens at that time?
It was, yeah. It was like when lockdown first hit. We were pretty lucky in WA. I think similar to how you guys were initially in New Zealand as well. It's like pretty much like went down to zero in life, got back to normal. There was a few months there where everything stopped, and it was like the only way of being a musician was to write,
Mm,
sort of in that world. So that's kind of what I did, and yeah, I came out of that for sure.
cool. Yeah. How did like the idea of Lunchtime come about as a song? As a
Um, it was about like I think a lot of people went through that a period of like forced reflection when COVID first hit.
Mm,
Um, and it's like a weird thing to do when you're not like willing and ready to like dive into that. It's quite like shit to have to deal with all this like all these thoughts, and I naturally overthink, and I'm an anxious person, and then when you don't have anything to distract you from that, it's quite overwhelming. um and I sort of just felt like everything that was happening at the time in my life was out of my control and just happening because it had to happen.
mm,
There was no sense of like progress because everything just sort of stopped. If anything, it was going backwards. And I was sort of like talking about that feeling through the lens of, I guess, a relationship breakdown as well. Um, and lunchtime was just like, because I was just like doing a lot of weekday drinking, waking up like in the afternoon, hungover, and like, what the fuck am I doing with myself right now? This is not great.
yeah, especially at that beginning of lockdown, like you say, where you've got no idea what's going on and no idea what's going to happen. I think it seems to
Mm,
be like the first few days at least, and that's different for everybody. It can be days or weeks or hopefully not months, but that you
yeah.
kind of just go like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing, stop doing everything and kind of just like sack out and do a bunch of nothing, and usually things that
Mm,
aren't so good for your health. And then you kind of
definitely.
have that reflection time of being like, okay, well, this is actually going to be like a long process. I might have to kick myself into gear.
Yeah, definitely. And with music is like the idea of like touring internationally, and they were talking about a vaccine taking a few years or whatever, because no one really knew that vaccines could be turned around so fast if there was that sort of concerted effort. And it was like, shit, like we're looking at years of this sort of thing, and that's quite frightening.
For sure. I think like being in the arts is a really interesting career to have at this time because it's so uncertain, and like all of our income slash lifeline comes from being able to interact with people in person.
Mhm.
So everyone's had to, especially people who create art, have to turn around and go, holy shit, like how am I going to do this in this situation, and when can I perform again?
Yeah, it's like, what's my life outside of this?
Mm,
What's my identity? Who am I when I'm not in this world? And like, I need to have something else, but it was fine before. Like, so that's that back to that forced thing. It's like, I don't want to have to do this
mm.
when I have no other option. I want to do it when it's like something that is going to be enriching or something, I suppose.
Do you feel like there has been some positive takeaway from this time in terms of a creative sense?
Yeah, I think it gave us a lot of time to reset and look at writing. Like, I probably wouldn't have had time to write this next album if it weren't for that. And I also think that the it slowed things down, so that yeah, sense of reflection and ability to think more deeply about things I wanted to talk about, and the past. And yeah, that was really valuable. I also think that it gave a good opportunity be to think about other people some
Mm,
more. I think, like, especially where in our situation where things aren't really that bad in a COVID sense for us. And I was looking on at the rest of the world, and Melbourne back last year when they were obviously had a lot of cases, in the US and the UK. And it's like, fuck, that is so full on. And that sort of, yeah, it sort of, I guess it made me less insular and inward looking in some ways, which is really cool and good for, yeah, good to write in that sort of mind frame, as opposed to being just like, oh my God, look what's happening to me.
For sure. I think it's like you say, like it's a sucky time, but when you realize that other people are having an even suckier time, that's kind of a crazy revelation, because usually, you know, that's always happening, but when it's happening to everybody for the same reason, that's kind of connecting. So yeah, really cool that it gave you an opportunity to look inward and outward in that sense.
Yeah.
I love the contrast that you've done with sort of somber lyrics and an upbeat feel. Was this something that you set out to do intentionally, or is it kind of just like, did it kind of just happen?
It's fun. I feel like when I started writing, it was never really an intentional thing. I've always thought and said that it's easier to write about sad things than it is about happy things. It's like happiness is just like and joy and like feeling good is just something you kind of feel. I think we're like sort of like conditioned to not necessarily talk about being really happy about stuff. You sort of just like keep your happiness to yourself. But like when people love sharing in sadness, it's just like a natural thing to talk about. I'm not quite sure why that is, but so writing about it's easier. And I often feel cheesy and like corny when I'm trying to talk about things that I'm like stoked about. People don't want to know that. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
But then, you know, and at the same time, we're like a live band predominantly. We write, not necessarily with that in mind, but we write to perform, and that's like a huge part of our identity as a band. So things that are upbeat and have, you know, like major melodies and major chord changes and like a poppy feeling, something you can like dance and sing to, work well for us in a live context. So we definitely consider that pretty heavily when we're writing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if, you know, with the intention to tour, which is always like the intention, I guess, you want to have stuff that people can, you know, dance to. Well, it depends on your genre, but I definitely would say that like Spacey Jane, when I hear that, I'm like imagining myself gonna go and have a dance, you know, and I guess you kind of know that other people are wanting that and feeling that. And I think that it's definitely cool to keep that in mind, but also it's like you say, like it's really nice to share something that you're going through at the same time, because other people, I think, like what you say is really interesting about how people want to hear the sad stuff and not so much the happy stuff. And I think that what contributes to that is just like as an audience member, and because when you're a musician, you know other musicians and you kind of like can see that side of things, but from an audience member's perspective, they're just like, you are this extraterrestrial human being, and they're like, wow, you have feelings and you feel sad, I feel sad too. It's so cool that you know that, and I guess it's a really good way to like connect with your audience, especially during
I agree.
time.
Yeah, especially for young people as well. And I feel like maybe it's not as much of an issue now. I think it's getting better. But when I was like a young man, 18, 19, I definitely didn't have a circle of people around me, or I didn't feel like I had male role models that were sharing things in a vulnerable way. Okay. And I think like I would have loved that. And I think, you know, I get a lot of real like fucking Aussie dudes being like reaching out about how they relate to something and being really deep and personal with me about a lyric that I wrote that they relate to. And that's like, that's a really beautiful thing to me, that's sort of that connection happens and you break down some sort of barrier as someone relates to that. I don't think my experiences are necessarily that unique to a lot of other people. Like as humans, there's a lot of shared experiences that are actually quite similar, no matter where you come from or what you've been through. Okay. And so that sort of relatability is a powerful thing, I think.
Yeah, and like you say, like I think that's even more important, being able to talk about something that encourages someone else to open up about how they feel, and like you say, like as a man, you have that perspective that, you know, we're still going through that sort of like boys don't cry, you know, we're breaking out of it, but it still exists, like you say, for so many people, and for them to feel like they're allowed to feel those things, is especially in a time where we're sometimes our own emotions and trying to unpack them by ourselves. That's so important. Yeah. How did you come up with the music video idea so long?
The concept was kind of like the real bones of it put together by a guy called Nick Kinley, who is a Melbourne-based dude. He was actually supposed to come over and direct it, but WA's border is really, really staunch with the other states, and they've got a bit of an outbreak at the moment, as you probably know. So the concept, he kind of came up with this idea of like something's happening to me in like a sort of subconscious, like mental place, and that's like physically affecting what's happening to me. So like in the real, like, you know, lunch or dinner setting that we have.
Yeah.
So it's like a super simple idea that was quite, like, I thought was quite powerful, quite cool, because it's that just like a real like physical representation of the idea of how you're being affected by what you're dealing with and what's happening to you in your own headspace versus how that manifests in your, you know, general relationships and engagements with other people. And so yeah, we just had a lot of fun sort of like thinking of weird things that could happen to me while we were in this like subconscious state, and then how that would then play out into the lunch setting.
Totally, like one big metaphor.
Mm.
We were so looking forward to seeing you guys at the power station, which was like, I think a week or two before lockdown happened here. Has this happened to you guys? Like, this must have happened countless times when
So
planning
much.
tours and stuff. How do you go through that or deal with that?
Well, it's by the way, we were so looking forward to those shows. New Zealand was the last show we played, like Christchurch in March. It was March 12th before everything got locked down. We flew home to Perth and didn't leave for like a year. We're very excited to come back, but it's been this like constant thing. Obviously, we postponed and cancelled more shows than we've played for sure in the last year and a half, almost 2 years. It's more of an issue for our agents. Like the amount of work that's involved, that is crazy. And yeah, so Paul Sloaney and Leela are copying it at the moment. But I think now we just have this like the optimism we have, the excitement for shows is very metered, very cautious, because and like when something happens, you're sort of like, oh, cool, that happened. And so that we just have to be like that. Otherwise you just get set up for disappointment.
Yeah, I guess it teaches you to be super flexible for sure.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, we've had to use different crew for shows, and just like it's a lot. It's been good. You're definitely like there's definitely an attitude in music of like we do things this way and our way, and like and people are sort of super staunch on like the way they want to go about stuff, and you've had to just give that away because you don't have that luxury anymore. So it's been good. It's been a good learn for the industry for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely like increases the stoke level when you do get to play for both, you know, band and audience. I think it is, it's kind of, there is a precious thing that's come out of all these lockdowns, which is this like newfound appreciation for all things that you can do in public. And it's so easy to get tired of performing or tired of going to gigs. And when you can't have it, and you know, when you guys do come back to New Zealand, I think it will be even more of an uproar because people would have been stuck inside for the past few months. And yes, we can finally go and get again.
Yeah. You guys are in lockdown at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, we've been in lockdown for a really long time, actually. If I think it's the longest lockdown we've been in. We've been in level 4 for a few weeks, and now we're in this like level 3 stage 1 where we can have picnics outside, but nothing else. But we're starting to get vaccinated, and never like that the percentage is increasing, so it's looking like we'll be kind of forced to open up soon, which is a good thing.
Is that guaranteed light at the end of the tunnel because of the vaccination?
I think tomorrow we're hearing like an update on a plan, and everyone is like so hoping for summer, and there's a big movement like backs for summer that's going around because obviously festivals want to happen and everyone's Are you playing many festivals this summer?
Not really. There's a couple, like we're doing a couple Wine Machine festivals, like one in Tassie, one in South Australia, but then and maybe something in Queensland that's been rescheduled, but it's just like we just have to wait and see. It's like when no festival bookers aren't, like none of the major festivals like Falls and Land are doing anything, just because they're just like the risk is so hectic, and it's such a massive undertaking to put a festival on, like a big touring festival. So everyone's still pretty cautious. They're sort of waiting until like this time next year to start rolling out all that sort of thing, just when there's a guarantee. And also when international artists can fly in to Australia, which hopefully by then that's all up and running.
Is the rest of the band in Perth as well?
Yeah.
Cool. At least you guys can all still do stuff together. You're not in lockdown at the moment, are you?
No, we've
Yeah,
been very
nice.
lucky in WA. It's all been pretty fine. Yeah, I think we had like 2-3 day lockdowns in the last 12 months. So
Wow,
it's
that
been,
12 months. That's great.
yeah. Since the pandemic started, we were in lockdown for like 2.5 months, and then we have had I think 3 lockdowns that lasted each less than a week. It's been quite
Wow.
amazing. Mm.
Yeah, we were like getting into that ignorance is bliss before this lockdown. We were like, yeah, we've nailed it. Like it's
Yeah.
on, having fun, and then boom. But it is what it is. And
Yeah.
like you say, you take that time to create and nurture whatever
Mm.
comes next and then tour when you can.
Yeah.
So what's
Yeah.
coming up for you guys in the future in terms of like releases, shows, anything we can plug?
Yeah, for sure. The album's like, we've been saying the album's done for like 2 months, but on Friday morning, Pepper's coming over. We're gonna do like one final little vocal thing, and then the album's truly done. It's mostly mixed at this point. And we'll be announcing that over summer, I think, which is exciting. And then shows wise, it's like we're just waiting to announce for February next year. So that's when we'll start rolling. I'm gonna go to the States for like the first for January,
Cool.
just holiday next year.
Yeah.
And then we get back and we're just rolling into it. So it should be fun.
You
But
record
then
at
the
home
rest,
mostly.
sorry?
You record at home mostly.
No, we use a studio usually, but
Oh yeah.
I have the capabilities to do some bits just so we don't have to go into a studio to do some things. But yeah,
Fair
I'm
enough.
too lazy.
Oh, well, you do what you can at home, saves the money.
Yeah, that's it. Saves money and the effort of driving.
Do most of you guys, do you write as a collaboration or do you sort of tend to write most of the piece in terms of lyrics and stuff and then bring it to the rest of the group?
Yeah, I write all the lyrics and the melodies and progressions, and sort of we'll just bring, that side of the bones of a song, something that you can play on an acoustic guitar, and then we workshop everything with everyone else, and we just sort of move through it like that. And then once it's got to that stage, there's plenty of sort of iterations of it that it goes through, lots of revisions and things like that. But yeah, they usually just start here at this desk and we just sort of put them together.
That's cool.
Lots of half finished songs.
Oh yeah. For every, I think something that needs to be more seen from the world is how many drafts there were before there was an album.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just thinking, man, these guys are wizards. They've just got like 12 great songs that just came out of nowhere. It's like, oh bro, you've not seen them behind the scenes.
Like 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be
So
really
much
funny to do like a just a release of being like, here's my iPhone like audio
that's
recording.
like my nightmare.
There'll be a funny
Just like the
video
whole
to do,
scene.
like scroll, close your eyes, scroll, and then stop, and then play. And then you have to write a song from that
Yeah.
audio recording, like right then.
Yeah, it'd be like me. It's like usually 1 a.m. and I have this like melody idea in my head, and I sing it with a really croaky voice. It's like like break. That's what you'd be listening to. It'd be fucking terrible.
Do you name your audio recordings?
I actually started doing it probably 6 months ago. I never used to. Now it's great that I do that, because now when I read it, I can't remember what it was, or I like name where I did it or something like that. So it has that.
I think
trigger.
that's like organization at its finest. Like
It's
I
so
think
easy to do.
my phone's at like 628 and I have no idea. Like
That's bad.
it's not good. But naming them is good because you go back and especially if you're like writing, you can start that collaborative, like that process by being like, oh, okay, do I have an idea? Oh, I remember that one being kind of cool and go from there.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's it. It's themed a little bit already for you.
Oh, we hope to see you in New Zealand as soon as we possibly
Yes.
can. I guess we'll be looking at February next year, which to be honest is not that far away. The year's flying by.
Yeah. Feb's the plan. It's all getting rerouted at the moment, and we're so excited. It'd be great.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, we'd love to see you at 13th floor if you come over.
Yeah, cool. Let's do it for sure.
Let's do it. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Lovely talking to you.
Thanks. You too. Thanks for the chat. See ya.
See ya.